Welcome to another episode of the Doers Podcast powered by FastForward. We're here live from during the Doers Summit 2026, and with us we have Mr. Rana Gupta, the Executive Director of the MIT Deshpande Center. Mr. Gupta, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
To start, I would like to mention that your career spans from venture capital, startup leadership, and academic innovation. Can you tell us a little bit about the beginnings and what drew you towards commercialization and entrepreneurship?
That journey, starting with venture capital and then being a CEO and then on to academia, started in 2001. But before that, I worked in consulting, I worked in industry, I even worked for the government for a period of time. And then I found myself at this stage of working with scientific founders. And I found that to be the most simultaneously challenging and rewarding. I'm not a scientist, I'm not an engineer, which is always important coming from MIT. I'm a businessman. As a businessman, I found that the challenge of working with researchers to help them figure out what's the value behind their invention was the most rewarding part of the whole business cycle.
So you've worked extensively with university spin-offs, which is something that Cyprus Seeds is also doing here in Cyprus. What usually separates research that becomes real impact from research that never leaves the lab? What makes those projects successful in the real world?
One word or one phrase: passionate researchers. Because it's really about people, which you'll probably hear me say more than once today. People think it's the technology, and sure, it is a breakthrough technology, but there's breakthrough technology all over the world. What makes it leave the lab is people and passionate researchers, passionate to commercialize it.
Do you believe that the personalities and the people behind an idea is more important than the actual product? I mean, obviously the product needs to solve a problem or have real market value, but it's about the people, that they're the driving force for this success.
So, as I like to say, ideas or technologies don't jump up and run out of the building. You need people to transform a technology into a product that somebody will use, a product that somebody will adopt, a product that somebody that's profitable. People have to do that. So yes, at the end of the day, we can have fantastic technologies, but it is the desire for researchers and people like Cyprus Seeds and the Deshpande Center to help them transform and ultimately launch and commercialize those technologies now as products.
So why are organizations like this so important, like the MIT Deshpande Center or Cyprus Seeds?
There are a few answers to that. If we look back at the post-war second half of the 20th century, a great deal of inventions and a huge amount of R&D that was commercialized was from corporations. Dow Chemical, AT&T, Bell Labs, Sarnoff, and the list goes on. At that time, for those decades, they were investing in and commercializing technologies. So that money has decreased from a basic science to product standpoint. Universities and research universities have become now the engines of such inventions. But whereas Bell Labs was able to take it from a laboratory out to you and me as consumers of telephones, that's not the case with universities. They don't have that internal mechanism. They don't have customers. So it's incumbent upon Deshpande Center, Cyprus Seeds, to assist them. It's a bridge, but it's a bridge in multiple ways, to help researchers understand this can come to market and how it comes to market, the process of commercialization. So we're vital in that, how do you get it out of the lab, helping the researchers understand that I can do this, if they want to do it. And that's a very important part of it.
Do you think there's a little bit of a taboo within academia for research projects to leave the universities?
So, as is my nature, as you can tell, I'll answer that a couple of ways. Sure, but in the same way that in any culture, somebody who steps outside of the culture, there's some taboo, okay? Whether it's in your house or in the culture of research institutions. But I would say that it's more that it's not understood. So we all know that there are, the job of a researcher, a professor in a university is publish and bring in grants. And we also know that publications can have enormous impact. Somebody who publishes something and the whole world goes, oh my gosh, look at that data. Think of commercialization as another pathway for impact. But that is not how researchers are incentivized to think and ultimately trained to think. I'll say the third way. I'm not a professor, you're not a professor. Professors are a self-selected group of people. At some point during school, they said, I'm going to become a researcher. That's not a path you and I chose, but they selected it for themselves. Therefore, put the taboo aside. They didn't choose to be a professor to commercialize, one might say. They chose to be a professor to engage in basic research and to publish. So at this point, as I like to say, the notion of commercialization is a passion play. So yes, we can talk about the taboo, but mostly it's somebody who has the fire in their belly.
Talking about fire in the belly, what areas of science, of technology excite you the most at this very moment?
So you'll be very disappointed to know I don't think like that. I say that for a couple of reasons. People will often say, Rana, do you see any cool technologies at MIT? And the answer is yes, of course. But I think about the people. I think about the researchers. I think about their challenges. That's what I think about in my spare time. I don't think cool technology. So I don't think about what's hot, in a sense. Therefore, and also, the Deshpande Center takes all technologies from all of MIT. So we don't choose, they come in from everywhere.
Okay. So based on your experience and knowledge, do you have any advice that you would give to young researchers that they would like to take an idea into commercialization?
I have a few pieces of advice. One, as I mentioned a minute ago, think of it as another pathway for impact, just like a publication can be. It's another one. Second, you don't have to become an entrepreneur to commercialize your invention. People like to focus on entrepreneurship because it's sexy. But the fact is part of the beauty of what Cyprus Seeds does, what we do, is you can help them mature this technology into a product concept and then license it. You don't have to start a company. You can license it to a third party, meaning you license it to a corporation. You don't actually create a company. So my sense, back to your taboo question, is that some researchers don't want to become or are afraid of becoming entrepreneurs. So one of the pieces of advice I would give is don't be afraid, because you can also commercialize via license.
So for someone who doesn't really know how these things work, can you walk us through the whole process from picking up the idea until the final stages of this program?
I have to start with, remember, this is starting in the laboratory. This is technology, it's science. It was not intended with a customer or a market in mind. So it's a technology, and we all look at it and think, this may have value in that marketplace. But we don't know. So what we are doing over the course of the next 2 years is we're giving grant funding, but more valuable than even the funding is that we have mentors, which we call catalysts, at the Deshpande Center. But these are people experienced in technology commercialization. These are clinicians, these are VCs, venture capitalists, these are CEOs, these are entrepreneurs, these are industry people, working with those teams. And the goal with the money and the expertise and the connections that they bring to the marketplace is to de-risk this technology while they're adding value. Now, what most people, first of all, this takes a long time. Our program's only 2 years, but commercialization, which is why what Cyprus Seeds is doing is also very important because they're also starting with spin-outs. Commercialization can go on for another 5 to 12 years if it's, let's say, a life science technology. The thing I wanted to impress upon you is when we start till when we end, just in our program, the technology can change, the application can, literally the technology. I invented X, I've got to reinvent it into Y. The technology can change, the application can change, the customer can change, the market can change, and any one of those or all of those can change. And that is so as I like to say, there's no prescribed pathway. There's no stepwise process. Like you'll read entrepreneurship books, the X number of steps to go from here to here. Not true with commercialization, for the reason that, as I just said, all those things, technology, market, customer, can change more than once as you're trying to figure out who values this technology and what economics it must perform within in order to be profitable. So that's the part most people don't understand, just how challenging and creative it is to take it from this notion of a technology to a product concept.
And before we close this, I would like to see what's your vision for Cyprus Seeds and its collaboration with MIT in the next 5 or 10 years?
So, we don't, as such, do anything together. I'm focused on MIT technologies. They're focused on Cyprus and now its diaspora. But in the spirit of your question, I'll even talk to Harvard down the street. I've visited University of Pennsylvania. I was speaking with Stanford the other day. So I always learn something, coming in, meeting with Cyprus Seeds and seeing what they're up to, seeing what their challenges are. It makes me reflect on my challenges and I can learn something. Hopefully, I can help them in kind. Think of it this way. A minute ago, I said we have professors who self-select. Those of us who are involved in academic technology commercialization are also self-selecting. Therefore, we all want the same thing. We're all trying to help professors and their students to bring their ideas forward. Therefore, it's not a competition, and we may as well get together and try to think about how can we solve each other's problems. So I'll answer in that way, which is it's a constant evolving of what this looks like and can we help each other do it.
Mr. Gupta, thank you so much for joining us to this episode of the Doers Podcast, and best of wishes to you and everything you do.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.